that last super fight that I lost, being out on the mat and, being a high level athlete, I can see before you guys can see that I could feel the match slipping. Like I was like, oh, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. And then I can feel it starts slipping. And I'm like, I just don't even care. I've never had that.
Mm.
I know
What do you
some
mean by that? I
athletes,
don't even care. What do you mean by that
I didn't
specifically?
care I was losing, honestly.
Liz, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I should say welcome back. Last time we spoke was in 2022. So, one thing I want to read to the audience is very poignant, I believe. It's something you wrote on social media. This year has had a lot of highs and lows. I became a Brazilian nationals champion for the first time after coming close multiple times before. I went to the finals of IBJJF Gi Worlds for the second time. I podiumed in the absolute of Gi Worlds for the first time. I became a 5-time and 6-time no Gi Worlds champion. I changed teams and moved states. And in the beginning of the year, it was very rough for me. I lost multiple super fights. I lost first round of Pan Ams. I had basically no training other than my husband and one teammate, but I believe I've made the necessary changes and adjustments to help fix these things. And I'm so excited for 2026. So very, very poignant observation there. And I hope to cover all of this. How did you encompass that thought and get it out to everyone?
I just kind of stopping and like thinking about it, earlier this year it was pretty rough. Like I mentioned in the post, I had multiple like back-to-back losses. After having my son, my training situation had kind of changed a little bit. I wasn't really getting the training that I needed. And I think I was just kind of hoping that it would kind of work itself out, and it really wasn't. And I really think like those back-to-back kind of losses were the kick in the butt I
Mhm.
needed to really change stuff. Really, since March of this year has kind of been looking at to get where I am right now.
Yeah, I think it's really important to dig deep on in that slump, if you will call it, during that period. But even before that, when we spoke in 2022, it was this imposing Elizabeth Clay who was just, just crushing people and more imposing your will, it felt like. And then we had this period of uncertainty, and it was a bit confusing, I think, for some fans and myself included, knowing that here is someone who's, I know, top 5 elite, female athlete, and her name is not being brought up enough, I think, in the conversation. And then suddenly, bam, suddenly you're back. Now, I recall talking to you in 2022. Things were in Alaska. It was a very different type of situation. I didn't know the direction it was going in, and then suddenly we see these losses. Can you talk about that arc from making the decision and seeing the performance from Alaska to these losses?
So in 2022, I was actually still in Arizona, but honestly, I've pretty much kind of always had an up and down. And as far as like not being brought up in conversation, I started training up in Alaska. So that's not necessarily like something new for me. I kind of always did that. I really only, from a young age, I really only competed the very big competitions. So even as like a color belt, it was very normal for me to kind of not be on the scene and then go out and kind of perform really well at a competition and kind of be brought up.
Hmm.
My first IBJJF was Pan Ams as a juvenile where I double golded. For me, it wasn't really that crazy. I think even so we talked in 2022, that was 2020 that I won Pans.
Hmm.
They had podium Brazilian Nationals that year too. The years all blur together a little bit,
Yes, yes, of course.
especially competition wise. I think that's where we're at. If you guys go and look and it was a different year, my bad. And I was still in Arizona all the way up until this time. I had my son in 2024. So the very end of 2023, I had that last super fight on Fight Pass with Louisa that I ended up winning. I was actually pregnant there.
Yeah.
And so had that, and then I kind of had that like I think to the fans was like a big gap. But that's because from Nogi World to the Pans usually have a gap anyway, and I was like 20 weeks pregnant by the time Pans rolled around. So by the time Pans rolled around, I kind of announced that I was pregnant, and I wasn't able to. I was training the whole time, but competition wise, I didn't come back until Nogi Pans that year, which was right after having my son. And then I did well there. I double golded Nogi Pans.
Yeah.
I won Nogi Worlds, and that was in the end of 2024. And then this year, I think it was kind of a mix of like not having the training I needed, mix of being postpartum, whether we like to admit it or not. And you'll see from earlier interviews at like Nogi Pans and Nogi Worlds, I was pretty confident in the fact that I was like 90% back. Now looking at it, like I wasn't. I was just so excited to be kind of back out on the mat. I think that I really think that that's why I felt so good because, you go from being pregnant, gained a bunch of weight, heavy, can't move that well, even though like I was still very active, was still training, everything like that. It's not the same,
Right.
obviously. That's like you're stuck in a knee brace after surgery and then you can move a little bit and you're like, I feel amazing. And you're not, you're like 50% there. So I would kind of like put it align with that. And then the beginning of the year, like going out there, and it was very weird because it wasn't just a physical thing for me. Like I literally remember that last super fight that I lost, being out on the mat and, being a high level athlete, I can see before you guys can see that I could feel the match slipping. Like I was like, oh, I'm doing good, I'm doing good. And then I can feel it starts with slipping. And I'm like, I just don't even care. I've never had that. I know
What do you
some
mean by that? I
athletes.
don't even care. What do you mean by that
I didn't
specifically?
care I was losing, honestly. You'll talk to some athletes, and this is I stand by the fact that being good at jiu-jitsu and being a good competitor are two completely different things. I've always been a very good competitor, so I only had to get good at jiu-jitsu. I didn't have to get good at jiu-jitsu and get good at competing. And they're two very, very different things. And I maybe a lot of high level athletes don't talk about it because you don't feel it anymore, or you do and you just kind of it just doesn't necessarily get brought up. But you'll see a lot of people that in the gym, they're really, really good and then they go compete and they just don't perform. It's not because
Totally.
they're not good at jiu-jitsu. It's just because they just aren't good at competing and they have to get good at competing as well,
Hmm.
which are two completely different things. And it
Hmm.
it varies person to person. Some people step on the mat and they don't want to be there. Like they step on the mat and they just want to get off. Or you'll see people and they just don't know why they didn't perform the way that they know they can. Or it varies person to person, right? But for me, I've never struggled with anything comes to being a competitor. It's always been like a thing in jiu-jitsu I need to fix, or my like strategy for the competition wasn't the best. It's something small like that, but something that's very easy to fix.
You say I didn't care. Was there a transition at that point where you were like, okay, I'm just going to click into survival mode, right? Which is different than I don't care, kind of to an extent, versus like the Liz I remember is just attack, attack. I'm gonna, I'm going for the win.
I just didn't. I was thinking about my son. I was on the mat and I was like, I don't even care what's happening right now. I just want to get
Mm,
off the mat. I think this must have been in March. He was born in August, so he's probably like
wow,
7, 8 months old.
wow.
He was still pretty little.
Hmm.
And I literally just remember being out there and thinking like I just didn't care and then going like, okay, it's time to like step it up. Like I can feel him losing it. And I just literally just couldn't. I've never had that. That's never been something that I've struggled with or
Fascinating.
that I've ever felt. And I went out there and I was like, even after I lost the match, because you go back to your corners, whatever, go back to the corner and my husband's in the corner and I was like, there's something wrong. I
Mm,
was like, there's something wrong. Like
wow. You actually
I
said
can
that.
feel I'm losing. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm there. There's actually a picture. I think I'm like laying my head on his leg and I'm like, there's something wrong. Like I don't know what it is. I've never felt this before. There's something wrong with me.
That's fascinating you mentioned that because that photo did speak, a lot of these photos of you, after these losses speak volumes. And I'm glad you could put words to it for those of us that were just so curious about like, we don't know, we couldn't put ourselves into as someone who's, a husband who's seen a wife go through that process of, having a baby and everything. I know from observation the lack of sleep, the chemical changes in the body, how that can play, affect you. I couldn't
Mhm.
imagine trying to compete at the elite level on top of that and traveling, etc.
Yeah, and then having him with us, and it was basically just me and my husband there. Luckily, my sister was able to come over to watch him just for the competition. But there's a lot that goes into it, and I think like from an outside standpoint, if you were to look at it, like it looked like I was 100% back. I'm there. I'm competing. I made the weight amazing.
Yeah, you look great, everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, everything should be fine. And like physically, I mean, like here and there, after 8 months, there's only so much you can be back. There's obviously going to be like little things, but like overall, was doing amazing right there physically looking at it. And I just remember that like there's just something like there's that switch that you can turn on, and that's there being an athlete. And I was like, I'm sitting there like it's like the electricity's off, and I'm flipping the switch, and it's not doing anything. And that's what it felt like. I'm out there and I'm like, dude, like this, it's not doing anything. I'm trying. I'm sitting, like, I'm telling myself, I'm like, we need, like, let's go. And it wasn't like, oh, I flipped the switch and it just wasn't happening. Cause that happens too. Sometimes you just get beat in the match. You're not as good. They just played it just so. Bro, I'm flipping the switch and nothing's happening.
100%.
And
Wow.
that's what it felt like.
Did you have anyone be the devil's advocate, so to speak, and say, hey, Liz, maybe we take a season off, or maybe we just sit this one out, or anything like that?
I don't think anybody would do it because they know how I am.
Right.
And that was kind of like, I was still pregnant when I was saying I was going to do Nogi Pants. Nogi Pants was like 76 days after I gave birth.
Amazing.
I don't think anybody would really do that. And honestly, at that point, like, I didn't have a coach. My coach wasn't super involved, which was part of the reason why the training was failing. So it's my husband. He's not going to say anything. I've already gone back. I've competed Nogi Pans. I've done Nogi Worlds, and I won double gold Nogi Pans. I won that, like, and he's just okay. And that was kind of, but after that, I was like, okay, something has to change. I was like, we have to change teams. Because I don't know. I honestly don't know why it was there. I don't know if it was mixed with postpartum and not having the training, and honestly being incredibly stressed out at the fact that I didn't have training. But I haven't been that stressed about my training, and I don't know how long. And that obviously is going to affect it as well.
Wow. So you were genuinely concerned at that point of your training. You knew, you were like, red flags.
I'd known it for a while. It had been a while that it was like that, and we'd kind of already been looking around for different teams for a while. But it was very like, if something pops up, if something looks good, like very kind of just like, you can see kind of, you flip it over and you see the sand coming out and you're like, I still have time though. But if something works, like, great. And I think that was really like the change. I was like, we're done. I was like, I don't know where we're going. I don't know what we're doing. We're moving. And I still did, like, I still had Brazilian Nationals under
Yeah.
Aries. I still had Worlds under Aries. We didn't leave until October of this year. So I still did like the whole season, but I'd already had conversations. In March, I went, and because I think I've known the guy since I was 16. I've been part of Aries since I was 16.
Yeah. It seems like
And
forever.
yeah, very basically my entire actual, like, career I've been under Aries. And I went in and, like, had the conversation. I messaged everybody, make sure everybody knows. I didn't want it to be a surprise thing. I was like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's going on. I had conversations. I was like, I'm still, as long as you guys are fine with it, I'm still gonna do the rest of the season under
Mhm.
Aries, just because I don't want to move in the middle of the season unless something just amazing pops up. So
Yeah, it all seemed very amicable, right?
yeah.
Like, it was cool.
Yeah, there's no problems. We just needed something different. We needed something more, and it's unfortunate when that has to happen, but I am glad that it was in a very amicable way. Like, nothing happened. I think a lot of people expect there to be like drama
Yeah.
or something,
Yeah.
and it's not always like that. At least it wasn't this time. It wasn't for us.
This seems like a very common arc for a professional athlete that I've seen, where things get stuck and a change needs to be made. And whether it's geographical, or a team, or a coach, or all of the above, it seems like a very natural progression of things.
Yeah, it's unfortunate when it happens, but it is what it is. In my head, it's better to make the switch than to have careers get flushed, which unfortunately you see a lot of.
So now you're at Six Blades in Texas, right? In
Yeah.
Fort Worth.
Yep.
And let's talk about that. So how is that looking? And specifically, what is different?
It's it's hard. It's different in the fact that also me and my husband aren't switching on and off. Our son ends up usually getting watched by someone there, either by Leo, who's the owner and the head professor. Either he'll watch him
Mm,
while we're training, so we actually get to train together. We're not passing him on and off, or even like, even if you're not passing on and off, even if you're training at the same time, any parent that's been in the gym, you don't have someone watching them. Even when you're rolling, part of your focus is over making sure that they're not, running onto the mat to get kicked in the face,
hmm.
or
Yeah, running in the weight
stealing
room
water
or
bottles.
something like that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
doing something that they shouldn't be. Even if they're still sitting in the corner, you're still constantly like looking over to check. And I don't have to do that anymore. Unless like and it's a normal class and somebody's whatever. It's not like that still doesn't happen sometimes. But for the majority of it, like my actual training, I get just train. Lil's very involved as far as coming over and like fixing stuff. I'm back training multiple times a day, which I hadn't been because I didn't have the opportunity to train multiple times a day while
Wow.
I was in Arizona, which is insane. There's just so much more involved. It's just good. It's better with what we need for now.
There was a lot of talk about this Gabby match of
Mhm.
yours that a lot of people have been focusing on, but frankly, for me, the big match was with Adele. And, the biggest concern I thought in the trajectory was with Adele because, I love Adele, but, she's a ninja and she is so damn technical and precise and dangerous. And what was going through your mind with Adele too? Was she sort of like on the top of your list? You thought this is someone I need to game plan for? And this is to put no shade on Gabby whatsoever. I mean, Gabby's been undefeated right at black
Mhm.
belt. Just crazy, crazy dangerous. So your thoughts on the Adele match?
I don't super game plan beforehand for anyone. I think a lot of people go and, like, watch matches. I don't really watch matches at all. I'm the worst about that.
You're still like this. I remember in the initial conversation, you're like, "I don't game plan, I don't watch."
I'm in my mind, that's my coach's job. Like, that's not my job. But my job is to have my game, and then, obviously, when I'm in the match, because I can feel things they can't, their job is to go do everything on the outside, which is watching the matches, seeing that type of stuff, and you can go filter through all that information while I'm just focused on the fact that I have to compete, and then as is needed, you can come and be like, "Hey, just so you know, watch for this." I don't super game plan. My mind going into that match, obviously, I had a couple matches beforehand, so it's really just that, like, whatever it is from my last match, so when that match goes, so maybe between 10 and 20 minutes that I'm actually, like, game planning,
Right.
but really it was like, "Hey, I know from she likes don't I have to be careful when I come up that we're not ending up in closed guard 'cause it's the last place I wanna be. I'd rather be on bottoms, fine, I don't wanna end up in closed guard. If I end up there, closed guard and half guard, I need to watch for the arm because she has that super strong mirror lock. That was really like that was the game plan. Play with the feet. If I feel like I'm not getting where I wanna go, come up. Honestly, that was pretty much it.
Wow, yes, that was really interesting. But did you know throughout history, salt has been highly valued and commonly used as currency? Warriors and sailors were sometimes given rations of salt for their wages. If they were worthy, they were said to have earned their salt. Salt Electrolytes drink mix is designed for today's warriors, athletes, and those who get after it and work up a sweat regularly. If you're eating healthy, drinking plenty of water, and working out, you need to replenish your electrolytes. With a light, refreshing flavor, salt is great to drink during your workout because it will not coat your mouth with a thick film. Salt contains 6 different electrolytes, with a touch of iodine to help maintain a healthy thyroid. No sugar, no color, no BS. Go earn your salt. And on top of that, if you use code FWB, how much should we give you off? 5%? 10%? Nah, 15%, just because we're friends. Now go get it. Salt Electrolytes. That is one thing I noticed with you. You look a lot more fluid and adaptable now. As I keep sort of alluding to early on in your game, way back, your game was very offensive, it felt like, and had immense success with that. Now it's weird how it's developed I don't know, for the better or for today's game, in that your defense is ridiculous now. You even get your foot stuck in sort of a straight ankle lockish type of position with Adele or something like that. It's just in
Mhm.
Nogi is an incredibly dangerous place to be nowadays. And you looked fairly confident there, fairly okay. And game face, obviously. But wow. Can you talk about that? Sort of your maturity in your game and your defensive game and the fluidity of your game and the adaptability of your game now.
I mean, I honestly, it's just the it's anything. Like, if you do footlocks, what's the first thing you tell a white belt? You're like, "Oh, don't get stuck on the feet." It's so easy to get tunnel vision, and I have a tendency to do that, I won't lie, ever since I was younger. I think it's a little bit different when you get to the upper belt because that tunnel vision can be good as well.
Mm,
So it's hard to kinda go through that, and again, I fall back on, like, that's really the coach's job on the outside,
mm,
is to make sure you're not either you are getting tunnel vision on something that you should be or that you're not, because they can see something you can't. You can feel things they can't, but that's why it should be this, like, relationship back and forth kind of, you both have a part to play, and you both need to respect the part that the other one plays as well. And really just that, like, going into it, my huge thing the whole competition, not just this match, is I was like, "I'm just gonna play, like, head, feet," like, that was my whole goal, and then I play a lot of top in training. I just don't come up a lot in competition. You can pick, like, a couple competitions. Brazilian National, yeah, I was in the gi, but, like, I came up a lot. I still pulled, but I came up a lot. I swept a lot. A couple like, I was passing, stuff like that. And in training, I'm on top a lot. I just don't come up a lot in competition. And that's honestly like this isn't a new thing for me to hear. I'm constantly hearing that don't be afraid to come up. You
Mhm.
always play like you have a good top game. You always play top. You never play top in competition. So I think for people like watching on the outside, it's like, oh my God, you started working on your top game, which for me, like I've always played a lot of top. I just didn't in competition. So it's more so just being like going into it, I was like, I want to pull first to make sure I want them to come up first. And then if we go, like, I can come up after that. I can use the feet to come up. So it was more so just like deciding I was kind of do it in competition versus it like being something that I was necessarily working on for the competition, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. It looked with Gabby, it looked like you were sort of double pulling. It was sort of
Hmm.
looked like the strategy kind of thing. And then with Adele, like you saying, head feet, and then you get this guillotine, which is incredible. And then speaking of being on top, the mount on top of that, crazy. And I've heard you mention before, and as every professional seems to mention too, plan B, plan C in case things go south from there. Can you touch upon that sequence, your guillotine, and I want to talk more about the guillotine with you, but your thoughts?
Honestly, the whole time I was really looking for the guillotine. Since I came up in top half, I'm looking for the guillotine. So I'm really just looking for that opportunity. Now, if I can clear the knee and just pass, I'm gonna do that. I really like hitting the guillotine from half. That's one of my favorite places to hit from there, especially in nogi. Even if I don't finish the guillotine, I love passing with it. The guillotine, it's a position as well. It's not just a submission, which I think some people get like stuck on the fact that it's a submission. So I was really looking for that the whole time. It's just those like tiny little hand movements that if you go back and watch the match, you can see both of us are doing. She's trying to set up the arm and I'm trying to set up either the pass or the guillotine that entire time. And I honestly I can't remember the exact movement that she did that kind of left the neck open and then we went through this whole thing came up, she turtled and then went through.
Hmm.
But I feel like once I had the head, it was really just a matter of when.
Yeah, that's a surprising thing too, because it took a while. I'm like, I don't know if she has it because we're kind of sitting there for a moment, which seemed like an eternity, but it, of course, was probably quick in actuality. But what was going through your mind when you're just kind of sitting there with it?
Honestly, just keeping the head again, like I'm following that, and I was like, as long as I have the head, I can make the adjustments I need on the rest of the body. If I tried to stay and didn't if I was like, you're not gonna come up at all, at that point she's gonna twist, and yeah, I might get the pass, but now I lost the submission, which is gonna end it. So really, I was just focused on keeping the head, which is what I think is important, which I don't think a lot of people work on. Again, it's a position. It's not just the submission, but some people they're like, I have the submission, and they kind of like jump on it and they lose the whole thing. So for me, I was really once I had her head, I was like, I'm just gonna follow this. I was like, this is I have this. I just have to follow it. And honestly, once they go to turtle, it's worse because once you go to turtle, I know you've come up into turtle, which you know is not a good position because there's so much pressure and you're just trying to alleviate the pressure,
Hmm. Hmm.
which isn't like it does alleviate the pressure in some ways, but it lets me just make it so much tighter. And even my husband on the outside, he's like, no, he's like, as soon as she went to turtle, I was like, that's it, because that's your last ditch. Like you're trying anything and everything
Which is incredible because her defense is ridiculous. So yeah, can you talk about the officiating a little bit?
with the reffing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. We both got a penalty at one point. If you look, we literally both
Yeah.
looked and, like, laughed at each other 'cause I'm like, "What more do you want?" After the match, we were talking, we're like, "What did the I don't know what the ref wanted." Like, there's movement happening here. The only thing, like, more if you want more, "Oh, Adele's gonna just lay down and let me pass." I was like, "Or I'm gonna stick my arm out." Like, I don't know what you wanted when we both got penalties. The fact if you have 2 athletes that look at each other and start laughing in the middle of the match, like, that says something right there. Both of us are like, "Bro, like, thanks for the penalty. I don't know what more you want from us." But that, like, really don't know what he wanted. Like, even going back and sometimes you're like, it like, there's a little stall even though we're like, I really don't know what he wanted. There was the constantly moving I don't know if you want, like, white belts where we're, like, jumping all over the place,
You're right.
but it was a little bit, like honestly, that was probably my favorite thing from the whole match because it was just funny. And okay.
When did you feel the momentum like shifting just throughout the event itself for with all of your performances? Because you went on a tear. I mean, you subbed everyone. And when were you like in the zone where you knew, okay, this is my day?
I felt super good as soon as I stepped out on the first match, but my goal is really just to kind of focus one match at a time. I honestly didn't even know how many matches I had that day until I stopped and thought about it.
Wow.
So I think it's so easy to get ahead of yourself. Same thing, like even when I was in the match with Gabby, people are like, so when you were up by two, were you already winning in your head? And I was like, yeah, like I felt good,
Hmm.
but it's still a match. It's the same thing, like going there, like, yeah, I felt amazing. But I was like, if I start getting ahead, if keep doing what I'm doing and I stay focused one match at a time, I know I'm going to win it. However, if I start going and telling myself I'm going to win it, you're not focusing on the match ahead of you. And then you might still win it, but you also might not. And I think that's the biggest that like I try so hard not to get ahead of myself. Same thing, like I don't go look at the bracket, stuff like that. I try not to get ahead of myself. You have there's one match ahead of you. Just focus on what's ahead of you. Same thing, middle of the match. You have literally what's going on right now. Focus on that. There's still time on the clock. There's still time on the clock. No matter how good you're doing. We've seen at Worlds be losing and then all of a sudden in the last 60 seconds they get so tired, they get sweat mounted and then submitted.
Totally.
It black belt. You
Yeah.
never know until that clock is out. Until the bell rings, there's always that. So I kind of always try to just keep myself like focused on what's exactly in front of me at that time.
So speaking of Gabby, let's talk about that matchup. Were you like dead set? I'm going for absolute as well.
No. I think it was still that day that I was like, am I gonna do the absolute? Am I not? Like I hadn't really made a decision and we were driving in the venue and I'm sitting in the car and I'm like, what am I doing? I do the absolute to warm up for my weight class. Like whether I want to fight the absolute or not, I fight my weight division better when I fight the absolute.
Wow.
You ask
Interesting.
anyone, what's the hardest match? The first one. Because you have
Hmm.
all the adrenaline, you have the adrenaline dump, you make all your little mistakes, everything like that. If I go fight the absolute, I get all my little mistakes out before weight. So that's the same reason I pretty much always fight the absolute. And I've tried not fighting the absolute to see if it really made a difference. And to me it does. It makes a difference in the fact that like I get all my mistakes out in the first match and it's just gone. And obviously if I'm making it like further in the bracket, that's amazing. It's an added bonus. But really the base reason that I fight the absolute is so that I fight my weight class better.
So winning double gold, by sub, does it feel any different now at this stage of your career?
That always feels great. It always feels great. I don't know if it's a normal thing though. Like you go, you have this huge high, you have this big win, it feels amazing. And because I get asked, people are like, "Oh, why do you keep going?" And I'm sure like there's plenty of people you could ask this. There's a number of people that keep kind of winning things. Mine just happens to be I do really well at Nogi Worlds, and I don't know. There's just something you go, you win, you're on this high, and then after a couple days, you're like, okay, what's next? Like it's still a little bit like if I think about it, I'm like, man, that was cool or this was cool. Like, don't get me wrong, there's still cool things about it. But obviously it kind of like rides out and you kind of level out, you can go back to your normal. And I'm like, okay, let's go do another one. We need something else. And it feels great still going and winning, especially double gold, like all submissions, especially it makes that moment better. But then once it's done, it's kind of done.
Is there a habit now that changed everything?
Not really. I've kinda always I'm just good at getting beat up and coming back. I really feel like that's like
Well, obviously, jeez.
but that's I don't really think there's like a habit that necessarily changed that. I think I've been kind of lucky in the fact that I've always kinda had that like grind and just going. I'm thankful that I've learned to change things when I need, like changing teams.
Hmm.
Because that wasn't always me. I'm kind of the person I kind of loyal to a fault and stay where I'm at without making changes when I should. And I think I've finally learning to make the adjustments and changes when needed, even if it sucks and it's hard. But as far as like in training or a mindset thing, not really. Obviously, I had that gap where I was still kind of coming back after having my son and being out of competition. but I don't think that's not something everybody's gonna go through unless, you've had a baby, and even then, maybe you might not. I didn't feel it until 7, 8 months in
Mhm.
after having him, so
Was there a point where during that period of disappointment and stuff where you're like, I mean, you are the, I hate to say it, the dog that won't stop. You just keep coming back. Was there ever a point where you're like, hey, maybe that was it. Maybe that was it for me and I had a good run. Yeah, I'm so fascinated by your mindset to like you mentioned in your very words, the low lows.
I did. After one of the super fights, I literally went and literally told my husband, I was like, "I'm done." I was like, and it wasn't like "Oh, I lost" thing. It was literally the fact that, like, I didn't feel like me out there. And that you can feel like you and still lose. You can feel it that you flipped the switch and you still lost.
Mhm.
I was
Mhm.
like, I literally can't. I was like, I don't have training. I haven't had training. I've had all these losses back to back, and I've had losses back to back before. It happens. We're in a combat sport that happens. And even the best of the best, you can go and be like, it might have been a couple years, but they had these ones here. Like it happens to everybody. And going through, and I was like, if something doesn't change, I'm done. Like you can look at it. Like it's just not. And also, I think like that probably lasted like 3 hours, maybe. And my husband literally, he's like, no, you're not. I'm like, fine, then we're leaving and changing teams. He's like, okay,
Wow.
okay, we will. Like it was literally that. But I also think, like, he's not gonna let me do it because he knows better, and honestly, it wouldn't last. I would go and I would probably miss, like I think I was back training, that probably happened on a Friday, and I was lifting the next day, and I was training again on Monday. So, like, my whole little, like, thing lasted maybe a couple hours, if that. So, for me, my biggest thing, it's not the losing, it's when I don't feel like me because those are hard things to fix. I can fix technique, we can make adjustments. That's like it's something I was told when I was 16. It's not about who's best, it's about who's left. I've seen so many athletes come and go from juvenile to adult purple to brown belt, even a black belt. I've seen so many athletes come and go.
Mhm.
And it's really just kind of that like, okay, we're just gonna keep going. Like it sucks, but it is what it is. The thing is like just it's so cheesy, but by just showing up, you've already beat most people. Most
Yeah.
people don't have that dedication and just keep showing up, or they have the dedication to keep showing up until you have those hard losses.
Yeah. No, that's very sage advice. But I'm also curious because like you were saying, you were loyal to a point and this and that, and change wasn't a thing for you. It seemed like what you were saying, but now I'm really curious if what are you more selective about now?
Honestly, the big thing for me is just having like a coach and teammates that are there in it with you. And not just for you, right? Like it's a two-way street. And I being an athlete is selfish, but also you have to look at the fact like I keep saying, but we're in a combat sport. We need other people.
Mhm.
And to have other people show up for you, you have to show up for them. And I think that that's an important thing to see. It's not necessarily like, well, this gym has all these accolades or these many athletes that have all these things. It doesn't matter if they only show up for themselves. It doesn't matter if they only show up when they have something coming up. Especially when you get to the higher level, we're not always in the same season. Like maybe we compete all the same majors, but you're gonna get a super fight at a different time than I have a super fight, and it might be gi season and you're doing no gi or vice versa. And you have to have people that show up for each other. It can't just be somebody that only shows up for themselves. Or you have one in there, whatever. But like as a majority, the group has to be people that show up for each other. And that doesn't even just mean the pro athletes.
Mhm.
That it's whoever you're training with. It's not just the pro athletes that make the pro athletes good unless you're somewhere where there's, 50 pro athletes.
Right.
It's whoever shows up for everyone. Everybody in that gym that you're training with that's showing up for you is helping you get there. And I think that's part of it that's important to see is having that like community behind you.
Mhm.
And so for me, like I've gotten more selective on like making sure that I have that kind of community.
You train so much. It's hard for me to say this, but have you reduced your volume, your load, in terms of training and everything, your workload and everything, in order to be more precise? What is that looking like? Are you thinking about reduced volume, or what are you doing?
I train 2 to 3 times a day
Yeah.
since we're here in Fort Worth. So not really, honestly. I if there's rolls going on, I'm more than likely I'm there rolling. even if it's just in a normal class. I don't know, just kind
So
of
you're a high
working on
volume
more stuff.
gal.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I enjoy training. That's like I truly enjoy training.
Right.
I love training.
You're
I'm
a fish
not
to water
somebody.
for that. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's I love training and also like it's gonna sound so I love sitting there and poking fun at people while I'm rolling. I'm the worst.
You're a gym rat. You're a
I'm
gym
like
rat.
I'm the worst too. I'll be the one in the gym and I'm gonna find the guy that's like 220 or 230 and an upper belt, and I'm gonna start just poking at you and messing with you.
Mm.
So I enjoy doing that, and I would rather do that in the middle of a roll. So I'm rolling as much as I can. I enjoy training, so I can't imagine like reducing it down. I've done it where I only train like once or twice a day, and not by choice, was training that once a day. I don't like it. I'd rather be there more. And I don't think that like it's gonna vary a little bit. Some people would rather just like kind of stick it in one training. I enjoy being at the gym. I enjoy that again, like the community. I enjoy being there and being a part of that.
I'm also curious about like the way you're in comp, that your hunting finishes and being aware of your points. And as I mentioned before, your plan B, plan C's kind of thing. You feel like your ego or anything shows up differently when you're hunting finishes versus, instead of just chasing points.
I've never really just chased points, so I wouldn't know.
I thought that would
Like
be the answer.
even when I'm like even if I'm going up on points, I'm always looking for the submission. I've never just
But you're
strictly
aware of
hunted
it. You're
points.
aware of your
Yeah,
point
always. You
situation
have to
always.
be
It's
100%.
yeah. Yeah.
But I'm also, as I'm doing that, I'm aware of like what's going on. But usually I'm aware of the scoreboard, and it's kind of one of those things that I'm like, hey, like if something pops up, great. Or let's say I'm on top and some like a submission kind of jumps out at me. I'm aware if I can actually jump on that submission or not without giving up points. Or let's say I'm down by points. Let's say I'm still in half guard. Like let's say we're there with Adele. If there's only a minute left, I'm gonna make sure I'm passing with it while I do it to make sure that I'm up as well. The last thing I want is to jump on something and the time expires
Yeah, and you're
and I
screwed.
lost
Yeah.
because I got so I wouldn't even say ego. I got so greedy that I wanted the submission so much. I'm gonna be like winning by submission is amazing, but a win's a win. I will stay a win is a win. If I win that like that's
100%.
I love
100%.
submissions. I love that whole thing, but also like a win is a win. I'm
Good
gonna
for
do what I
you.
have to do to
Okay.
win.
So did you see I hate to say it again, but the slump period is like a prolonged plateau?
It is, again, like the highs and lows, you kinda just have that. I don't know if it was necessarily like again, I keep bringing back postpartum because really, like, while I've had hard losses, I do think that it played a role for sure. And
Thank you for
I
sharing that too and being honest about that.
I think that, like, it was just part of that, and I keep saying it took longer to hit me. I don't think that it was necessarily that. I think I was just so excited those first competitions to be back on the mat, and honestly, I don't regret any of it because I don't know that I would be where I am right now without it. I had somebody ask, like, a question on Instagram, and I don't think I ended up answering it. Oops. But there was a question on there that was like, "Do I regret coming back so fast, or do I regret any of the super fights, how they went and everything like that?" And while I do think that, like, maybe for that match, if I look at it as an isolated event, 100% there was a better time for that, 100%, obviously. However, if I didn't have all of those things there, would I be here right now
Right,
where
right.
everything is? You
Totally.
can't you can't look at things as an isolated event. I don't think this is just in jiu-jitsu. Maybe I'll life coach you over here. I think that's with everything
Yeah, I think great
in life,
point.
everything. You can't look at things as these small, tiny, isolated events because when you look at that, obviously anything that went wrong, you can say that you could have done better, you could have fixed it because it is an isolated event. That's very easy to look at it like that. However, would everything play out the way it is now? I really don't know. So would I change anything? No. If it was happening again right now, would I change something? Maybe, but I can't go back and change anything. And I think postpartum played a role in that, and then jumping back and not having training and being so ridiculously stressed about the fact that I didn't have training. I didn't. If you go back and I didn't have a coach there. It was just my husband.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which
that's
don't get me wrong, he's a black belt. He's this, but like it's a different relationship.
totally.
And he's great in my corner. That's not saying anything. He's always in my corner as well.
Mhm.
However, I didn't have like just a coach there. And you're mixing all these things in there and there's so many things going on. So I think it would be really hard to pinpoint like why it happened. I just think there were too many things going on at the same time that it could be literally any one thing or it could be all of the things.
Is that an easy conversation with your husband? Like, hey, I need a coach. You're a competitor. Also, thank you for coaching me. How do you navigate that?
It necessarily is something that needed to be brought up. We've talked about the fact that like for both of us, because I've coached him at major competitions. He's coached me before at major
Sure,
competitions, but
sure.
it's always good to have another person there, right?
Yes.
That's just a coach. We both have that. That's not, and we've done it for years, basically
Yeah,
doing it for each other.
yeah.
But it's something we've taught, like, it's good to have someone else do that. However, it's not like it's gonna stop us coaching each other, but having an added person there is always very beneficial. That's just their role. We've had some people ask because he's in my corner at Nogi Worlds too.
Mm,
And like even in training, it's not like oh, he's just my coach, right?
mm.
I think some people have because he's been in my corner, they're like, oh, he's your coach and you're like student, right?
Right, right.
No, we do it for each other. Same thing on the mat. He'll constantly like he'll come over and be like, "Here, let me try this. What do you think?" Or we'll be in the roll in the middle of a roll and I'm like, "Why didn't you do that back here?" And he'll do the same thing to me. He'll be like, "I don't know why you're passing like this. Try to make this adjustment here." So it's kind of that two-way street. Same thing when he was this was back 2024, he's in Brazilian Nationals in quarterfinals or semis or something and I'm out there coaching him as well. So it's a two-way street. So I don't think it was necessarily something that needed to be a conversation because both of us, one, we're going to keep doing that for each other, but both of us know that it's extremely beneficial for each other and for the other one to have a coach whose job is purely to be a coach because we're split. No matter what we do, we're split between we're an athlete and trying to, in essence, coach the other person.
Mm.
And I think both of us are aware of that because it's a two-way street. I think it would be different if he was the only one coaching me, but I feel like both of us kind of feel the same way about it, so it's not really a conversation that necessarily needs to be had.
Do you have anyone now at Six Blades or and down there in Texas that is playing that coach role in terms of that they're just observing your game right from afar? They're not a competitor or something like that, and they're game planning and strategizing, watching your development, planning your path or anything like that.
Yep, Professor Leo here at Six Blades Fort Worth does that.
Gotcha.
He's again like he's very much he's involved. He's there. He's the one running. He coaches pretty much every single class there still. Just even normal classes. He's there every single day and he's also like involved in it. So
Okay.
we have that now. We have him there who's basically like just a professor, which is amazing to have and just feeling that different. But it's that like even having that first couple weeks, I'm like, I'm not used to having that anymore.
Wow. Wow.
Just somebody that like that's there every single day doing it.
Totally.
But it's extremely beneficial. And that was honestly that and then having more training partners was really our big thing.
So you just needed a lot of variety too, huh? You needed more
Yeah.
looks and everything. That's interesting because also I hear, people say, there's a difference between a coach and an instructor, right? There's someone that
Mhm.
just sort of instructs and teaches at an academy versus like a coach.
Yeah, 100%. You see a lot of people that can go through and instruct and show the same thing that they've done, but being able to break it down and adjust things for each athlete is different.
Now, I'm curious about like you've been in this game for a while and you're in this really interesting time because, since juveniles up to where you are now, you've seen the development of women's jiu-jitsu or jiu-jitsu as a living now. You can, some people that are actually making a living. I know the women's pay thing, your thoughts on that. Can you talk about like just being a professional jiu-jitsu athlete and actually making a living of it? What does it look like versus the early days versus now versus where it should go?
I don't get me wrong, a lot of women aren't getting paid what they should be, but I also think there's a lot of athletes, period, that aren't being paid what they need to be. If you don't have someone in your corner that
Hmm.
has an idea on what you should be getting paid,
Mm,
you're not getting paid. I've seen it happens to plenty of male athletes as well. It's something that's not necessarily like everybody talks about like the pay, but nobody mentions what the pay is.
right.
And so I also think that that makes it easy to kind of have it be where you don't know. I think for the guys it might be easier because maybe the guys talk more, maybe it's like a known thing because it's been around more, or they can ask like if you're at a bigger school, you ask your professor, they have a bunch of other athletes, or they'll ask one of their friends who has that, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But I still definitely think it happens to even the male athletes. It has come a long way as far as pay, period.
Right.
not just for the women's, but like when I started training, I got laughed at for saying I wanted to make it a career
Yeah.
because like men didn't make it as a career. At that time, it was still one of those that it was like, oh, you won worlds, here's a gi. Like literally, that
Yeah.
was it. Like I got laughed at for that. They're like, men don't even make it as a career, much less a woman. And at this point, literally, you couldn't open a school as a woman and have it be successful.
Totally. Yeah.
And I don't mean like successful in the fact that like you have 500 students. I mean like successful in the fact that you could pay bills. And it's in the last, what is that, 13 years now? It goes fast. Like in the last 13 years, that's changed a lot. And like you see, and like not just as athletes has it changed. You can see schools owned and run by women that are successful, and not just with other women. They're
Hmm.
successful. You have students, period. Because I think for a little bit there, it hit like a market where yeah, you could open a school as a woman, but it was like women only.
Right.
And I feel like now we've started finally to come over the fact that you can have a school and just have it be a school.
Of
It
course.
doesn't
Yeah.
have to have like crazy marketing that it's only women, run by
Right.
women. Well, it's just a school. It's a school and the owner happens to be a woman. That's amazing. And like getting sponsorships, unfortunately, this is still something you hear sometimes is like, oh, well, the women's market isn't there. And again, people, it's companies that just don't want to pay, and that's just an excuse they can use. It's really not. I don't think it's this overall. I'm sure that there's individuals that just are sexist or whatever,
Hmm.
but I think it just hits people just not wanting to pay, and it's just the easiest excuse that they can grab. And it has gotten better over the years, thankfully. But that is that like in 2020 it was a lot worse. 2020 that was something you would hear from almost, and I don't mean almost everyone, I'm sure like, but at least who I was talking to, so many companies would be like, the women's market just isn't there.
Hmm.
Who spends more money? Don't even. And that's also a conversation I've had. I
Good
was like, who
point.
spends
Great
money?
point. Great point.
Who goes and drops hundreds
Wow.
and hundreds and hundreds and maybe hitting $1,000
Yeah.
on gym wear when there's a Black Friday deal? Who wants the same sports bra in every single color or tank top or shirt? And then they have like 6 different shirts in every single color. A
Hmm.
guy doesn't do that. They have the same one tank top they like, and then they'll decide they want one other color. Like they're not necessarily dropping a ton of money. And half the time when a guy has new stuff, it's their wife buying it. Even if the wife doesn't train. So I'm like, this
Great point.
doesn't,
Great point. Yeah.
I've been like, that doesn't work. I know who spends the money, but it's come a long way as far like pay across the board. It has come a long way. Personally, I think the best way if like because you have the argument of well, not as many people tune in to the women's. Okay, so do it by how many people are in the bracket pay wise. Let's say there's bracket for a competition, so then
Hmm.
it is even across the board. Does that mean maybe I'm getting less because there's only 15 people in my bracket versus 30 people? Yeah, but so are the rooster weight guys because there's just not as many. So then it is more even, but it's come a long way. I've only ever been an athlete. I've made my entire career as an athlete, and I'm not, I'm 25. I've made my entire career as a professional athlete. I've never had to work another job, thankfully. So it's definitely something that's possible, and it's come a long way. From little 12-year-old me getting laughed at, saying that I wanted to be a professional athlete and make this as a job, to this is the only job I've ever worked. So it's amazing to see. Hopefully it'll come further, but I feel like especially in the last couple of years, it's progressed a lot, and hopefully that keeps going on.
Yeah. Your thoughts on like these big names now, like yourself, Helena, Adele, all these names being thrown about like as actual finally getting branded type of names, right? And some like notoriety and marketing, even if it's self-marketing. Does it feel different?
I feel like because it's kind of like grown together, and also I don't follow that much actual jujitsu stuff.
Hmm.
I felt like there's people that I know that I follow. I don't follow a ton of like actual like jujitsu, like news outlets or stuff like that. It's come a long way, but also I feel like just as it's like kind of naturally progressed, like natural branding has just progressed, I think, with social media.
Yeah, totally.
I think that's kind of a social media thing that it's kind of like come along that way. And unfortunately, with the growth of it, I do think one of the cons is if you read comments on any of the posts, they're horrible. The first hour or two, it's great, and then all of a sudden you'll go back read. I mean, from any not athletes' personal pages, but if you go on like any of the news outlets that are posting stuff after a couple hours, the comments are horrible. But that comes with the growth of anything. There's just more people in it that maybe don't necessarily train or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But I really think the branding is just kind of a growth of the age of social media that we're in.
So that's one thing I'm glad you touched on that because I want to talk about Elizabeth Clay, social media marketing. When are we gonna, start seeing the slick, Elizabeth Clay marketing moves and the Patreon, and the whole everything, elizabethclay.com and that type of stuff. I feel that you've been focused. Obviously, I know you got a million plates you're spinning right now, the family to focus on. You got little Danilo, that came on the scene. And then you had all this competition that you had to focus on. Your move, it's just crazy. But have you thought about that? Because I think that you would be so great in that respect. I mean, you're there, but you're not the slick product quite yet.
There's just honestly, I love being an athlete. I think if something happened like coming out with an
It's just
instructional,
not your jam, right?
it's really I'm okay going and being the one and being there, if that
I
makes sense.
get it.
I don't
I
wanna
get
sit
it.
there and being the one spinning everything.
Right, right.
And, like, there's just so much more behind the scenes that goes into it than most people realize, and also, people in general are so finicky. They'll say they want something, they say they want something, they say they want something, you come out with it, and
Totally.
it's like crickets.
Yeah, totally.
Or you have some people, but it's not like you're like, "Bro, where's the rest of the 90% of you guys?" Like, 10% showed up. People are just so finicky with it. You go through, you put in all this stuff. I've been wanting to come out with an instructional for a while. I actually 5, 6 years ago negotiated down all the way to a contract, did everything, and then
Wow.
it just ended up not working out. So it's not something that I'm like anti. I should probably be reaching out to people, but it's really not my style. I never have been the one to go out and reach out to people. And maybe that's kind of why it'll surprise people that like nothing will happen. All of a sudden something like pops out.
Mm.
It's because generally I'm more like I kinda stay over in my lane, I compete, I post on, like, Instagram, social media, and that type of stuff. I've started moving a little bit, like, onto TikTok and that type of stuff to post, but not as much jujitsu, kind of other. But it's just I've always been the kind that I wait for people to reach out to me, even at sponsorships at, like, 16 and 17. I didn't reach out to brands. Like, I
Wow.
always had people, they would reach out to me. I'm like, "If you guys want me, you'll come to me." And I feel like at that point but also at that point when you wait for it, I feel like it's much more appreciated as well because I know you actually want me. There's so many brands or people or instructionals that'll accept it just because you reached out and it's easy and it's part of their job, but they don't really care. And I've never enjoyed that.
Now, it seems like you're laser focused on just competing right now, right? What does the
Yeah.
sort of competition outlook look like for you?
Honestly, really, Gi World is the big one for me right now. That's really like I don't have Euros yet. I'll focus on that one after. The timing on that one just sucks with where it falls. It just being like it's right after the holidays. If it was literally 2 weeks later. But Pans again this year, Brazilian Nationals, Gi Worlds, and then I'll probably try to hit at least Brazilian Nationals Nogi or European Nogi. Maybe we'll hit both. We'll see. So I haven't done either one of those before, and I think it would be kinda good to branch out at that. I have 6 Nogi world titles. I have 6 Nogi Pan titles, so be good to branch out at the other 2 majors that I haven't hit in Nogi yet.
Not everyone is going back and forth in a gi quite like you. You've always, I know when we initially spoke, gi's your jam. It's your background. You've been doing
Mhm.
that forever. Can you talk about flipping back and forth and why?
I love the gi and I love being able to jump back and forth. I really can't imagine just sticking in one thing. It's always been a goal for me to be good at both and have majors at both, and I'm sure if I focused on just one, it would be easier.
Hmm.
I wouldn't have that transition period or that period that I'm losing training. You're not, you're still training, but it's for a different purpose.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure that would be it would be an easier thing if I would just pick one and focus on it.
Mm.
But I can't imagine actually doing that. I'm almost 5.5 years a black belt. I can't imagine just like picking one. I really enjoy both. I really enjoy competing both. And that's even like a thing and be like, oh, you're gonna focus on Nogi now? No, we're coming into the beginning of the year, I'll still be focusing on gi. If I get some super fights no gi, I'll jump back and forth. But even when I have no-gi stuff, like people were asking about my camp for no-gi worlds, I trained for a week and a half of no-gi. Everything else was gi because I was training for the crown.
Wow.
So I
Gotcha.
literally trained Nogi for a week and a half. That was basically my entire from Worlds until the crown was all gi that I was training, and then I trained a week and a half for it. That was my camp.
Are you seeing these two as two different games?
For me, no. My style is very similar in both. If you look at like what I grab, there's obviously like adjustments I have to make because of the gi or no gi, but I feel like my like core game is
Mhm.
very, very similar. Which is a pro and a con, because it also means I'm getting into the same positions and I have to make those little switches. I'm very lucky in the fact I think because I jump back and forth so much that it doesn't take me long to make those adjustments, like maybe 1 or 2 trainings, and I feel like I'm able to make the switch, which I'm very thankful about. I've been able to jump back and forth that like the pans that I ended up winning, I had Polaris less than 2 weeks before that, which was no-gi. So I feel like I'm very lucky at the fact that it only takes me about 1 to 2 training sessions to make the little, like, switches. I'm playing reverse Salahiva, and I have to stay posted on the hip and the gi. If I'm doing no gi, my arm's going behind the leg instead, and I'm going false reap. So just,
Mhm.
like, they're very close, they're very similar, but there's those little adjustments I have to make.
Wow.
But I'm very lucky that my game is very similar in both.
Are you concerned that it's easier to game plan for you in that respect?
Possibly, but, I mean, if I'm worried about everybody else, my jujitsu's not good enough.
That's what I thought.
I got bigger problems to worry about. If I'm so worried about somebody just game planning for me, I already have bigger problems.
Now, I want to go back to the guillotine because a long time ago we spoke, and I believe I asked you about an aha moment, and you mentioned a detail or something of the guillotine. I think it was that you just did some. I think you saw it at a seminar or someone taught you that was just a little something different. Can you talk about the specifics of your guillotine in general?
I don't know. It surprises a lot of people. I guess how I do the guillotine is not as common. I do it's a high elbow guillotine, so it's a Merceau, which I don't think is that crazy. I don't know how he did his grip, so I'm not saying that like I'm this amazing person. There's other people that have done it like anything in jiu-jitsu. That there's nothing. I'm not gonna toss my name on it when, let's be real, there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people that do it similarly. Really, the biggest difference for me is the grip on my hand, how I grab. I don't grab on my palm. I grab almost all the way to my fingers.
So, what's it
But
look like,
it's
an S grip kind of thing, or whoa?
nah, here. I don't say people have the pretzel grip. I can't
Can you
do that. That
describe
kills
that
my
for the people
shoulder.
that are listening on audio?
Yeah. So if you guys are listening, basically I have my choking hand, which would be the one that's grabbing the chin, and then my hand that's going over, I'm literally just going palm to the back of my hand, and then 2 fingers are on my palm, and then 2 fingers are on my other hand, on my fingers. Because that gives you more wrist mobility when you move it. Because 'cause I'm going high elbow. I like high
Right.
elbows. Even when I do an arm in guillotine, I cheat. I don't do a true arm in guillotine.
Really?
I still do like a normal guillotine without it. I still tuck the head and try to bring over. I'm not good at one-arm guillotine, so I just treat it like a normal guillotine, and I just happen to be connecting.
Mm.
But personally, I prefer the high elbow if I can, so I just grab lower because it gives you a little bit more, wrist mobility, which makes it
Hmm.
easier for you to have both hands, both of your elbows basically up on the shoulders, which is what it ends up looking like.
So, Liz, I want to be respectful of your time here. Was there anything that you wanted to cover or talk about that we didn't touch on?
Just make sure you guys follow me over on Instagram because that's, again, where I post for everything. If you guys want seminars, anything like that, it's all over there. Elizabeth Clay BJJ over on Instagram, and Elizabeth is with an S, not a Z.
Go follow Liz on everything. And hopefully, Liz, we'll do this before another 3 years or something like that. Let's do
Yeah,
it again, please.
sounds good.
Man, I can't wait to see all your future endeavors. As I mentioned, like before when we were talking, when I saw you, and no shade on Adele, I love Adele. When I saw you win that one, I literally stood up and yelled. I was like, "What? No way!" I was just like, "Holy!" So, congratulations on everything, your
Thank
recent
you.
victories and your future victories. And all right, everyone, we'll see you guys next time. I am your host, Adolfo Ferranda. And Liz, again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, see you guys next time.